All right. Mary, you want to start us off and then I'll do roll call?
Sure. Just wanted to let everybody or remind everybody, Sandy is also, I think, away at a conference and is not here. And Rick Radisky has out-of-town company, so I believe that he is going to be present as well. And otherwise, I appreciate everybody coming out. The other thing is that I am working off of my phone because my computer would not let me sign in. So I'm not going to be able, I don't think, to see raised hands and things like that. So Kelly hopefully will be able to see that part of it.
All right. So we'll start with roll call. And just so people remember, if you have any local updates or events to share from your community, feel free to do so when you let me know you're here. Brad.
Yep, I'm present. No local events. Thanks.
Thank you. Charlie. Charlie, if you're calling by phone, it's *6 to unmute. Okay. Charlie, if you get *6 to work, to unmute yourself, feel free to speak when you're able.
He says present. Charlie says present in the comments here, Kelly.
Okay, got him down.
And Mike Borman says he's here. His Teams is glitching up too. He can't hear anything, can't join, but he's trying to fix it.
Okay. Christina. Bonnie Boris, I know you're here.
Yeah, present.
Daniel Brown.
I'm here. No updates.
Daniel Burlingame. David Norwood. David Wynn. Elizabeth. Gail Dugan.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay.
Sure can.
All right, I am present and I would like to report to the rest of the group. We had a town hall here hosted by MPART. Kelly and Abby did a phenomenal job putting together a lot of technical people. We recorded that event. They gave us all the data on the Menasha site and the PFAS levels in both those sites. They are now being included in the rest of the PFAS action sites that are around the state. We're looking forward to working with them, but congratulations for both of those folks to putting on a phenomenal town hall. Got a lot of good information and a lot of educational material out to everybody that attended, and it was recorded, and I've been directing people in this area, and if you're around the state, if you'd like to look at that recording, that would be fantastic to really show how a professional town hall was put together. And thank you very much, Kelly and Abby. Appreciate your work.
All right. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you, Gail. Gail Manswitz. Jason Legowski. Thought I saw he was on, but now I don't see him. Well, hopefully he'll be back because he's presenting soon.
I am back. Yeah, I was having Teams problems.
Okay, good.
Perfect.
I could see people and I knew things were happening, but I couldn't hear anybody.
Okay,
I had to
good.
restart my computer.
Jeffrey Dutton. Jeremy Welsh. Joe. No Joe today. John Breeze. Justin. Ken Harvey. Laura. Leah. Lynn Knopf.
I'm here.
Thank you. Lynn McIntosh.
I am here, and I do have a little update. I'll be sharing something later on about an event in the community, but we have a new MPART site here in Kent County, just kitty corner to the Wolverine headquarters and right across the street from their warehouse. So I have a few comments later on I'd like to share about that, but it's concerning because the township where this is located, everybody is on well water. So anyway, that's in our neck of the woods here. And I don't know what's going on with the computers tonight. I was on my other computer and Microsoft Teams opened up 30 times. And I finally had to turn my computer off and
wow.
use my iPad. It just kept repeating itself. So it's a very interesting evening. Glad we're all here though. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Joe, I got you down. Thank you for joining. Margaret. Mary Blanchard.
Mary Blanchard is here, and I have a couple things. In March and then again in May, I had sent a letter to various agency staff asking that we have the town hall being held in Holly in person, and also to request that other agencies and divisions and departments be present. And Abby sent a response on May 25th. It said, "Dear Save Falk Road Committee, thank you for your March 22nd, 2023 email with a letter attached from the Save Falk Road Committee requesting an all-agency town hall to discuss issues of concern to residents in Holly. I have discussed the non-PFAS related issues with Eagle Management. The issues presented in the letter are issues that have, from Eagle's perspective, been addressed through the permitting processes and within the confines of Eagle's regulations, and have been answered previously through phone calls, emails, and meetings. The PFAS investigation for the former Falk Road dump has been summarized for the community previously via emails and mailings from the Eagle site lead. The most current FFRD update is attached, which includes the latest groundwater monitoring results. Once an updated conceptual site model is available, MPART will hold a virtual town hall to share the findings of PFAS groundwater monitoring efforts and investigation efforts at the FFRD. The virtual town hall will be focused only on the FFRD PFAS investigation and will be recorded and accessible shortly after the meeting, so the people who cannot attend can review that information. And while I appreciate the response, it does not address all the issues and does not even cover the fact that the worst contamination on that site was in the soil in 1993 and had to do with heavy metals and not PFAS. And our biggest issue is that the hydrology and aquifer information has not been made available, even though I have FOIA'd the Oakland County Water Resource Commission, Oakland County Health Department, and Eagle, and also Holly Township has asked for hydrology information. And the township was actually told that information has been misfiled or taken without permission. So that is where we are at. No in-person meeting at all, and a virtual town hall meeting only dealing with PFAS and not all the water issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Mike Borman said he was here. Pam McQueer. Patty Baldwin.
I'm here.
Richard Burns.
Here.
Rick Radisky is not here. Bob Pataki. Samra. Sandy is not here. Shelley.
I am here.
Stacy Taylor. Teresa Landrum is not here. Tony. And Bill Barnett.
I'm present. Thank you very much. I would just note our local city, Cadillac, has recently offered PFAS-free water to our township to run it through their infrastructure. 2 letters were sent out to the township. Actually, 1 or 2 letters. I'll send a letter out, or the copies of the letters. The newspaper just FOIA'd those from township and did an article today. It's quite a switch from their equity and taxation process, which usually, or policy, which usually requires annexation to provide any service outside the city. They just settled with a other neighboring county and got 800 acres through an annexation process to provide water and sewer service to that township. And here they came over to Herring Township, which is having PFAS issues and an unknown source causing those. And the city's offered to provide them clean water, although much of the problem area has no pipes at this point. It was an interesting gesture. The township, I think, is considering suing the city for the cost of moving their well to a place where there's no PFAS pollution. In any event, there was some activity in our local area, and I guess it's a positive because they're offering a short-term solution. However, I think the township has not received that very well. And in the meantime, they've been testing a river before and after our wastewater plant, which has been discharging PFAS. It was the result of 2 Superfund discharges. It's a result of leachate coming in for 30 years from a landfill into the river, and now IPP violations that were pretty consistent from 3 companies last year. In any event, our Clam River has been the recipient of a lot of things, and with that said, there's a concern that it's polluted in an aquifer that covers much of Herring Township, and with that, out of the blue, the city offered, with no equity in taxation or annexation, an offer to use a city service outside their borderline, which is a huge modification from their typical position, which in some ways could be looked at it as a positive, trying to help the entire group of people that are on the Herring Township water system, and possibly others that have PFAS that are outside that system, but could have some infrastructure added. And their Herring's water system does have a level of PFAS in it, but it's been under guidelines. However, it would not be under the future EPA guidelines that are really coming around the corner. And glad to be here. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Bill. Hey, Mary, next thing on the agenda was the COG subcommittees.
Hey, can I jump in real quick? I'm so sorry to interrupt. I didn't realize you're on the end of the roll call. I just wanted to mark myself present. My name is Samara Lookman.
Got you down, Samara. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. Thanks everybody for coming. And as far as the subcommittee reports, the first one listed for membership, we again did not meet unless you wanted to consider the survey may be part of membership, but that actually came more from leadership than membership committee. And thank you to those people who did respond, and I'll have more on that later. And is there anybody here from the website review subcommittee?
Yes, Brad Benman. We didn't really have a formal subcommittee since it was, so Kelly and I just chatted informally about some things regarding the possible outreach ideas and that kind of thing. So well, hopefully we have a small committee, so anybody that would be interested in joining, feel free to attend at 4:30 prior to our normal meetings. Thanks.
Thanks, Brad. For the prevention subcommittee, I don't believe Dave has joined. I don't think Dave Wynn was part of the roll call. I'm on that committee, and as far as I know, he has not reached out to hold a meeting recently. So the other was engaging the public, and I kind of like Brad. It turned out to be just a few of us, and people had technology issues in connecting into the meeting. So unfortunately, Charlie and Connie and Lynn tried to join in and were unable to connect. I don't know how much they were able to hear versus being not able to speak. So it turned out to be Kelly and Brandon and Colleen, Lynn, and I just having a conversation. And we were kind of discussing more so the COG in general and kind of the interpretation of the charter and that based on the survey results and that. And I was sharing some of the information on our communication things with our particular group and how that related. So just wondering, is Lynn able to speak now on the A.J. Birkbeck Memorial?
Before we have Lynn go, I just wanted to, on the engaging the public subcommittee, I tried using the call-in number after we discontinued the meeting and was unsuccessful. So I don't know if it happens to be a Teams thing just for today, but regardless, I'm going to cancel that current meeting notice and reschedule a new one. So hopefully next month we don't have the same issue.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kelly.
Okay, Lynn, are you gonna share your screen?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure, I have it in front of me, but it's so funny. see, I don't want to lose my photos. Let me go back to the meeting here. I'm on my iPad, so I'm not quite as, oh, here we are. Okay, so what do I do to push to share screen?
So on the Teams call, you should see a box with an arrow in it,
Oh, yeah, I
and
see it.
underneath it says share, and
Oh,
then
yes, there we go.
you
Look at that.
then share screen.
All right, I'll do that. Now I will try to get from here to my album. Let's see if that works. Wouldn't that be amazing? Right? I'm sure you're all just on pins and needles with excitement here. Let's see. Can you see my screen?
Nope. So when you hit that button, you'll get another screen that pops up, and click share or click screen.
Okay, I'm so sorry to keep you all. I've not done this before, and like I said, I couldn't get on my computer. So let's try this again. If it doesn't work, I'll have you all do it. Let's see.
Yep.
Okay, so and then it says share screen.
Yep.
And then
Click
what?
on.
And then it says Microsoft Teams, everything. Okay. So do I push screen broadcast or start broadcast or anything on the
Sure, try it.
nothing happened. Microsoft Teams. Okay, oh wait a minute. Let's see, something's happening.
Oh, no, it's trying to record.
Okay, well, all right then, Kelly, I don't want to take up time with everybody seeing that, so we'll just. I just
yeah.
oh, share photo. Okay, now it says share photo. Yes, select allow access to all photos. Okay. Allow access. Okay, now it's showing you all my photos. Oh, this is crazy. Okay.
So I'll go ahead and do it. Is that
Yeah,
gonna work?
okay. Yeah, I don't want to take up more time. I guess it's something I have to practice for. That I can just move. I have it in front of me and I'll just say as we're going along. All right, everybody. You can all wake up now. Last May the 31st, the last day of May, obviously, was also AJ Burkbeck's birthday. And Kelly, do you have the first photo up? There's a photo of AJ. Okay. This photo was taken by Garrett Ellison in 2019 at the just south of the Wolverine Tannery site. And AJ was speaking to a group of environmental journalists. And as it turns out, there has been a bench dedicated to AJ in honor of his life and legacy, placed just a little further up from where he's standing right now. And we had an event wherein many people in his family, traveling from California, Massachusetts, New York City, they came to this event. And because of COVID, it was the first time that all of us were able to meet each other and share stories and celebrate the impact of his life. And that is the river, the Rogue River. And the Wolverine Tannery is just behind that. And this is a photo that shows so much about AJ. Many of you know about AJ, but some of you are new to the Citizens Advisory Work Group. AJ was a member up until 2021. He passed away on November 1st of 2021 at age 61. So it was very meaningful to gather and remember him. All right, let's the next slide, if you want to move it.
Oh yeah, I'm kind of scrolling through them. So maybe, okay, go ahead.
Do you see the picture of AJ with a
fence?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, that's right. The tannery is right behind that. And that's just another picture of AJ from 2019. I just want you all to see him first. Okay, next one. Watch out, Chicago. We traveled to the EPA Region 5 in October. And this was the meeting that finally got the EPA to come back in and take authority again. And there's AJ, all clean shaven. Rick's on the other side, and our other coworker Janice is in the middle. So, okay, next one. Here's AJ sitting at a table in 2018. There is someone from the Michigan Manufacturing Association. I'm not too happy about this meeting. It's when the EPA came and held a roundtable discussion down in Kalamazoo. So he listened hard and was always strategizing. All right, next slide. And that's AJ in my backyard, 2019. He celebrated his birthday and he turned 59. And that's the photo we also had at the event. So these are the many faces of AJ, for those who don't know him. All right, the next one is the bench. AJ was honored. If you look in that photo, you'll see there's 4 modern terrain wells behind it. We put 4 glasses of clean water on top. It's interesting. We all stood in that grassy area. None of that was there. AJ was the one who helped a small citizens group get the attention the site needed. So the scholarship planning committee came up with this plaque. AJ Birkbeck, 1960 to 2021. Steadfast champion for safe, clean water, protector and advocate for those harmed by PFAS. It's really nice to know that Patty Baldwin, who was on our COG, and Sandy Wynn Stout helped to be part of raising funds for the bench and also planning the event. And Rick was very much part of that as well. Nice to have members of the COG there. And Mary Blanchard came all the way out to join us that day, which was wonderful. Okay, here's the bench. Are you all in the blue sky photo? That was a beautiful hot day. That's AJ's mom over there in her 90s. She was able to attend the event. They just got the bench in, the only handicapped accessible bench in all of Rockford right now. Okay, the next slide. You with me, Kelly? Kelly?
I am.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure. Let me know if not. This
Yep.
is AJ's family. His brother Dan is in the orange shirt. That's his mother and dad in the middle, both in their 90s. His sister, Catherine, who came from Boston, and his 2 twin daughters behind with their boyfriends, Kevin and Ryan. They were so proud, those 2 daughters. They were there. There's an in addition to dedicating this bench, at the same time, a committee joined another part, which is there's a scholarship established in his name and in his honor. And last time I saw AJ was when I was with his 2 daughters there at an MEC event where that scholarship was announced. So it was beautiful to see them again on the other side of this. When I saw Catherine, AJ's sister, I saw AJ again for a minute. All right, the next one. I wish I had worn a red dress that day. that's AJ's former wife, Catherine, another Catherine, and Allison in the black dress, and Sarah in the flower dress in front of the bench. In the next photo, we have Rick Brodisky, and he is the MC of the event, and there were probably about 50 or 60 people there, all gathered in this day from all over. We had some people come from Ann Arbor as well. And then the next photo shows Rick as he's going to announce our first scholarship winner. And drum roll, next photo, there he is. That is Ethan Coffin, and he is sitting on the bench. And he will be studying foam and be doing a paper on that and research PFAS foam. And it was so nice he was able to join us for that day. Again, if you look way behind, there's all the tannery way back there in the river. So as Rick and Garrett said at the event, it's like where this bench is located is one of the biggest spots where PFAS is just chugging into that river. It's like AJ's going to be keeping his eye on things. We had a cake. Same. This was sort of our theme. Steadfast champion for safe, clean water. Hard to summarize it all, but that's what we came up with. The next photo is, I don't know if you can see the shape of a river flowing through this. It's something that we hope to have raised up more. But there's a quote there that says, "There's a crack in everything. That is how the light gets through." And that's kind of how it was. We had to keep finding the cracks in things, along with AJ, to help get light through, to bring light to the river. It's a story of people's lights connecting with one another to figure out how to address the situation. So that was made also in honor of AJ, to be used elsewhere. And the next photo was one of my favorites, because in this photo to the left, you see Patty Baldwin, who again worked very hard with me and a few others to organize this event. And then you see Toba McNaughton right next to her. She's one of the people whose whole family was drinking high amounts of PFAS, and she's there with her 2 children. She was able to have this second little boy standing in front, Bruce, because she had stopped drinking the water. Her other son, Jack, had very high levels in his blood, but they're going down. And right next to Jack, there's Sandy, who was able to come. And behind Sandy, well, there's me, and then there's Catherine, which we have a family member, and Garrett Ellison, who broke the story, and then Courtney Kernigan, who has done so much for communities as a professor at MSU. And it was just lovely to see all of these pieces, all these people coming together. And the next photo is the same, except Garrett moved, and now we have Tobin's husband, Beth, at the back. And I've known that family now for 6 years, and they are so grateful, and so grateful to AJ and all those who worked on behalf. All right, next one, real quickly. After the event by the river, which was hot, we went upstairs to the second floor of the corner bar, and it was even hotter. There is AJ's mother again, and father, and his sister-in-law. And the next one is Catherine, the sister, and Sarah with her boyfriend Ryan, and you can see other people in the back. It was a beautiful day. We were so grateful for that. This next picture shows a close-up of AJ's brother Dan, who again brought AJ back to us. Very special way, and evidently the other gentleman is also named Dan. I don't know anything about him except he's a lawyer who attended. And there is my husband Michael, who worked very hard with Patty to handle things when I wasn't around. And a professor from Grand Valley State University, and I'd like to point this out to the group, Danny DeBosta, is collecting stories all throughout Michigan, even beyond Michigan, about people's journey with finding PFAS, working with situations regarding PFAS, and she's got an archive going at Grand Valley. She was able to come and meet all the people she had met by Zoom. So, and Rick's in the far back, finally relaxing. And the next photo is Danny and Courtney and Gail, who is our member. She's not here tonight. Gail Mansowitz was a core part of our original committee, all meeting each other. Beautiful evening. And I think the last 2 photos, last 3, are my favorites. Let's see if I'm right. Oh, no, we got a couple more. There's Elaine from West Michigan Environmental Action Council, and Conan Smith from the MEC, who came, and he was the one who helped establish this scholarship in honor, in memory of AJ. And another CCRR member, Tom Kineski, is there in the corner. Next one, we have Tom again, and Bob Delaney's wife, Beth. And Bob Delaney, many of you know, is from 2010. He is like the big whistleblower for Michigan about PFAS. He studied it intensely and wrote a white paper about it. He and his wife, well, Bob particularly, but Beth is very much aware, and they're still working hard to get the important research done and make people aware. So in the next photo, you have Bob Delaney talking with Janice Tompkins, who was a core member of our team. They knew each other before this all started, and it was because of Bob and Janice's connection that we were able to get the. It's just amazing when people know each other, which is wonderful about our group. They were able to share information, and between the two of them, it really helped action take place at Wolverine. And also Wolverine helped get the word out up at Wordsmith. So it's really wonderful that Bob came. And then the other connection is that Sarah, AJ's daughter, was an intern for Bob one summer. All right, so now we're coming to the last three photos. This is Gary Ellison, who really appreciated and learned so much about AJ. And he's sitting beneath the poster of AJ that we started with, honoring the life and legacy of AJ, Britt Beck. And then if you look at the next photo, this is what happened. We have Garrett on one side, and then we have Allison, AJ's daughter, on the other. It just happened. It's an unposed moment. But to me, it brought things together in such a meaningful way to see the two of them, who both respected AJ so much and come from the story from different perspectives. And the final photo is just Al. I think I could look at that photo for an hour. Brings it all together for me. So thank you for letting me to share this moment. I think these stories coming together is an important part, as well as the other practical things we do as a group. And that's it, Kelly.
Thank you, Lynn. Appreciate you sharing that with us.
Oh,
that was a really nice day. It was warm, but all the people who were there just seemed to really enjoy the area and the memories. It was great.
I also wanted to say that Abby Hendershot was invited, and AJ would have loved to have had her come if she could have come. But Rick read some comments from Abby at the time of the ceremony, and that meant a lot. So thank you, Abby, for your words.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, and Karen Vorse was there as well from Grand Rapids District.
Yes.
And she told me it was a lovely, lovely service and really was touched by everybody that she saw, as well as Dr. Scheibler from Rockford Public Schools.
Oh yeah, he was there.
You had the who's who of Kent County, including Kent County Health Department's Director of Public Health, Adam London was there.
Yeah, Adam London came. That's right.
Yep. So I'm really sorry that I missed it. But I'm glad that Rick was able to read my inadequate words of, describing AJ's impact on us all.
Well, he read them well, and they were much appreciated. So yes, there was many representatives from this whole story were there in one way or the other. So, okay.
Thank you,
And
Lynn.
Rick was the master of ceremonies, and he did an awesome job presenting.
He did.
It's really good.
Yep, he really did. And thank you, Mary. Mary got a recording of this, but we'll have to go back through the video and recording sometime. But
no problem.
Meant a lot for all those who came from the other side of the state on a hot day and faced the traffic.
Thanks. So the next thing on the agenda is the COG member responses to the survey. And we did have 8 people who responded to the survey. As far as questions 1 and 2, having to do with the proposed outreach on PFAS information to their community and possibly their neighboring community. Most people viewed it favorably, but a couple members thought that it should not be the only focus, particularly of the Engaging the Public subcommittee. And it was also suggested that experts with EGLE and MDHHS should do the presentations, and that COG members could offer support of their impact stories instead of actually doing the presentations. Question 3 got the most varied responses. This was regarding the possibility of holding a meeting of COG members. COG members only. Some members were very much in favor. Some were supportive because other members were asking for that type of meeting. And a couple members were definitely opposed to a meeting. I don't think the survey came to any definite conclusions, but as far as the proposal of going forward with this possibility of the presentations, I think that we can still pursue that, possibly with Engaging the Public subcommittee. Kelly and I were talking during the Engaging the Public subcommittee today that possibly the EGLE and MDHHS are not quite ready either to start this process. So we'll keep you updated on how that goes. And if anybody would still like to turn in their surveys, they're more than welcome. And I would be happy to add that to it and send it out maybe in a week from now. But thank you very much to those people who did respond. And does anybody have any comments or questions or their own feelings on the survey, even if you didn't respond? Okay. Our next thing on the agenda is the PFAS remediation technologies presented by Jason Legowski.
Kelly, I'm gonna try to share if that works.
Sounds perfect.
See if the technology works this time. Can people see the title slide?
Yep.
Perfect. So this is a presentation slightly modified from one that I gave a little over a year ago as part of EGLE's RRD, technical webinar series. Focus is really on, is it possible to have a zero waste solution for the remediation of PFAS, and really highlighting what some of the emerging on-site destruction technologies are that might actually result in a zero waste outcome. So what's the objective of the presentation? It's just to provide an overview, kind of high level, keep the technology to a minimum. So I really kind of focused this to the general public to the extent that I can, and whether there is such a thing as a zero waste outcome, with a focus more on liquid waste, because solids that are impacted with PFAS is kind of a different animal, if that makes sense. And this group is small enough, so feel free to interrupt and ask some questions along the way. And I'm going to apologize for those who may have seen the webinar a year ago. So the agenda really is what are PFAS, and it's going to be a brief overview. And again, I'm not going to touch on things that people may already be familiar with. Different remediation approaches for water, what some of the emerging destruction technologies are, and give you a case study with a bit of an interesting twist at the end, and then just open it up for questions. Let me know. I have a tendency to talk too fast, so let me know if I'm going too fast for people. The point of the slide really is, and I'm not a slide reader, so I'm not going to read all the words on the slides, but bottom line is, and this group knows it really well, there's PFAS in lots of things and lots of different products. AFFF gets kind of the most media attention, but it's less than 10% of source PFAS material. So it's not the only thing people should be looking at. Again, why are they a problem? There's literally thousands of the compounds that are impacting drinking water, and AJ's Memorial there is a really good case in point. It's in the food chain. They're persistent. A lot of media and regulatory focus. Not all of them are regulated. Some are, some aren't, and they have parts per trillion cleanup action criteria. They persist in the environment, and the dead end products or daughter products don't biodegrade, which means they accumulate. Hence the name, they're forever chemicals. Some of the unregulated PFAS, which are known as precursor compounds, can biotransform to daughter compounds that do become regulated. So just because you don't necessarily have PFAS or PFOA in a sample at the moment, but if you have precursors, you could have those compounds down the road. And obviously there's increasing regulatory concern. There's the US EPA PFAS strategic roadmap. There's a potential circular listing for several of the compounds potentially taking effect later this year. So they're definitely a hot topic with regulators, impacted communities and individuals in the media. Quick hit on the chemistry, there's poly and perfluorinated, and the difference really is whether there's full, the carbon chain has full fluorines on them or not. That's kind of the simple answer. Most commonly regulated ones are the perfluorinated compounds. And you can get the polys biotransforming into the perfluorinated compounds. So here's the challenge from an analytical perspective. The picture, and I kind of love this, that's $1 trillion $1 bills. Give you a perspective. The MCLs for PFAS and PFOA are 16 and 8 respectively. That's like finding 8 individual dollar bills in that stack of cash. Really tough for labs to do accurately. So let's start talking a little bit about remediation approaches. And again, the focus really is on kind of liquid wastes. Incineration, high temperature destruction, it's currently frowned upon in lots of jurisdictions. There's things called absorption, which GAC is granular activated carbon. There's resins, there's polymeric absorbents, and other polymer products in media that effectively act as magnets. The challenge with absorption technologies is they're not necessarily specific just for PFAS. So if there's co-contaminants in there, other things will bind to those absorbents. This is typically the approach used on a lot of systems at the moment, is whether either GAC or resin, and usually used in series. But you can also look at separation and concentration technologies. Filtration, things like reverse osmosis, NF is nanofiltration, or ultrafiltration, which are basically just varying size membranes. And you effectively force water through a membrane, which allows the water molecules through, but contaminants get rejected on the other side of the membrane. There's another technology some people might be familiar with called fractionation, which effectively, and that's the picture kind of in the center and the bottom, where you're creating a foam, similar to the foam you'll see on lakes, but you can effectively float out contaminants using air, ozone. DAF is dissolved air flotation technologies. PFAS has a tendency to stick to the bubbles because of their charge. So you can effectively float them off and then skim the foam off. And you can get 99% plus removal of PFAS compounds using fractionation technologies. Top picture is an absorption system, and the middle one is a reverse osmosis plant. But one of the problems with, particularly with absorbent materials, is you have this waste media that requires treatment and or disposal. So you have this whole waste cycle that happens with PFAS where you can remove it with GAC or other things, and whether you regenerate it or not, you end up with a solid waste, and it usually ends up in a landfill, or when it's allowed, you can incinerate it. Some of the resins you can regenerate, and you can regenerate GAC. But again, you end up with regeneration fluids you have to deal with. If you're using a filtration, whether it's RO or other, you end up with a reject. So that's the water and material or contaminants that doesn't pass through the membrane. So you have a waste stream that you need to manage. And with fractionation, you end up with a concentrate or a super concentrate, which is that foam fraction that you pull off the top of the water column that condenses back to a liquid. And first pass through a treatment plant is you produce a concentrate. And if you reprocess that concentrate again, you can concentrate the PFAS further and end up with a super concentrate. And I'll talk a little bit more in the case study about how that's working, because that's actually happening on a site on the west side of Michigan at the moment. So what's the waste challenge? PFAS compounds are recalcitrant by nature. Today's remediation technologies don't destroy or degrade them. So the waste is likely to be relocated to another offsite facility and start that cycle again, where things end up in landfill leachate, which potentially may or may not remain on site. The good news is there are technologies that are coming online and becoming commercial that allow, cost-effective. Well, I use the word cost-effective loosely, to achieve destruction of PFAS at a commercial scale. So what are some of those emerging technologies? First, I'm going to point people to kind of a reference source, which particularly for this group might be good for people to look at some point. But in 2020, EPA established a PFAS innovative treatment team. It's called PIT, or the acronym is PIT. Bunch of engineers and scientists, and they evaluated a bunch of different technologies. So the ones that I'm kind of presenting here, I pulled from their website, but they were kind of challenged to identify technologies that can destroy PFAS in liquid and solid waste streams. I'll focus mostly on liquids here, but I will touch on a couple for solids. But their mandate is the technology should be readily available, cost effective, and produce little to no hazardous residuals or byproducts. That was kind of the mandate for reviewing the technologies or selecting the technologies that they looked at. Again, incineration, it's a proven technology. It's been around a long time. The question is it achieving full destruction of PFAS? There were some cases on the East Coast, particularly the Northeast, where PFAS was found in emissions from incineration plants downwind. So a lot of jurisdictions at the moment have effectively put a halt or banned incinerating these compounds until things can be, I guess, studied more to show that it's a safe disposal technology. It requires high temperature, but it also requires time. So you potentially end up with the incomplete destruction of PFAS compounds and potentially make or generate shorter chains. And typically the incineration plants aren't mobile, so you're moving waste from one location to another as part of this technology. Electrical chemical oxidation, or EC, it basically oxidizes the pollutants in water by passing electrical current through the solution and using proprietary materials in anodes and cathodes. So the advantage is it's proven at bench scale. It's been proven at pilot scale. Operates at ambient conditions. You don't need other additives into the mix. It's mobile. Tends to have lower energy demands than the thermal options, and that's one of the disadvantages of incineration. It's pretty energy intensive. The challenges are you can produce unwanted byproducts depending what else may be in the liquid stream. You can end up with the incomplete destruction of some PFAS compounds if you don't use enough current or provide enough residence time in the vessel. And you can lose loss of efficiency of the treatment cell due to buildup on the anodes and cathodes. And it's effectively, there is high energy costs. So it's just an example. Defluoro is the current trademark. There was a global consultancy that's came up and commercialized this approach. There has been a couple of large scale pilot demonstrations. So the technology is scalable. I'll use the word loosely, commercial. I'm not aware of any U.S. pilot plants yet to be completed and or found the data, but you can achieve 90% plus destruction. Latest buzzword, supercritical water oxidation, or SCWO. So water behaves differently at higher temperatures and higher pressures. So in that little red quadrant in the upper right, once you get above a certain pressure and temperature, things that weren't soluble in water suddenly become soluble. And when you add in oxidizing agents such as oxygen or other oxidizing agents, you can actually break down the PFAS and destroy it. You effectively oxidize it, and you can achieve nearly 100% destruction. And I'll use the word PFAS annihilator, and I'll get to that in a second, but it's scalable. But the current plant, when I prepared this presentation, the maximum they could treat was 500 gallons per day for a mobile system. Now you could have multiple units, but a single containerized unit was able to treat up to 500 gallons per day, which isn't a lot. Treatment takes seconds. It produces inert salts, so effectively you have that zero hazardous waste solution. This is just a process flow diagram for the PFAS annihilator. Again, it's a closed loop system. It can run via generator or off mains power. They're just using oxygen as the oxidant. And there's a site in Western Michigan, which we'll get to the end, that's actually using this technology. So this is kind of a solids, because I wanted to touch on this, is there is technologies out there for destruction of PFAS in solids. So if you think of ball milling, just think of the large steel balls in a chamber just getting tumbled around. The impact of those steel balls where those points come in contact during the milling process can produce a plasma, which effectively can break down the PFAS bonds. Been used effectively for treating PCBs overseas. The EPA PIT team has reviewed it here, and it does have the potential for soils and solids applications here, including biosolids. Typically, they add reagents into the mix to help with the reaction of fluorine, but it's a big rock tumbler, and it does potentially work. So it's a technology to keep your eye on, particularly for solids, but it's still kind of in those early stage assessment. So touch on some other destruction technologies. Sonolysis, it's effectively using high frequency sound to break the carbon fluorine bond. This has been proven at both the bench scale and kind of pilot scale, so it does work. There are some pending CERTA ESTCP trials in place, but effectively it uses high frequency sound to create a bubble which cavitates, then collapses, and you get high surface temperatures where those bubbles collapse. So it's a different way of looking at thermal destruction, but using sound waves at higher frequencies to create it. People have heard of plasma, so electrical discharge plasma does work. Uses a fair amount of energy to do it. There are thermal and non-thermal options depending on how the system is set up. In aqueous applications, typically it's non-thermal, so it uses less energy, but it both oxidizes and reduces organic molecules at the same time using that plasma arc. Bench scale results achieve 90% reduction for most PFAS compounds, but it's a reasonably low flow rate, so 1 gallon per minute. Little nod to Michigan here and some connections, I think, to Michigan State, but photoactivated reductive defluorination. So they're using UV to degrade PFAS in solutions. So they're adding surfactants to a PFAS solution to create a film basically around the PFAS, and then they're using a reducing agent that's activated with UV light to create hydrated electrons. And then they're using that to effectively oxidize and reduce the PFAS compounds. Still in the early stages, and again, it's a Michigan-based firm. It basically mineralizes the PFAS compounds and basically creates fluorine and clean water, along with acetic and formic acid, which can be used for other applications. From a biosolids perspective, which is one of the, I guess, legacy issues that a lot of places are dealing with. So where water treatment plants have taken PFAS impacted biosolids and applied them as basically fertilizer, or land applied them. Now they're going to landfill. But there are other treatment options in terms of looking at how you potentially can remove the PFAS from the biosolids. Pyrolysis and gasification are two of those. You get a reduction in solids. The challenge is incomplete destruction of PFAS, so it needs additional evaluation in terms of how you apply the technology to make sure you're not moving things from a solid phase into, a vapor or an air emissions. So on-site destruction technology considerations. So it's that whole life cycle cost that you have to look at. Treatment costs for the different technologies are really driven by energy consumption and whatever consumables they're using, whether it's electrodes or various reagents. Treatment rates are typically low, and if you're not careful, they have unwanted byproducts. You have to look at both batch versus continual flow considerations. So whether you're doing it like an individual treatment step and then emptying, restarting, so it's a start-stop approach versus continual flow. The question is it scalable? Most of the destructive technologies, the sweet spots is low volume, high concentration of liquids. So think of highly impacted groundwater or surface water, leachate, or actually spent AFFF or unused AFFF. And then whether the technology is at a commercial scale or not. And then I guess Abby will relate to this in stakeholder acceptance. You have both from a client perspective, the public, which is represented here, and then from a regulator perspective, whether the technology is accepted. So if you remember, I mentioned I did this case study or presentation a little over a year ago. The case study that I presented was a theoretical treatment train with a zero waste potential outcome. And I looked at fractionation, which produces a liquid waste. A polishing step, if it was required, could be RO, which again produces a liquid waste stream. And then using supercritical water oxidation as an on-site destruction technology. So when you do the math, and I'm not going to expect people, and I'm not going to read every bullet, but if you use fractionation and you reprocess the concentrate to produce a super concentrate, and then you look at what supercritical water oxidation mobile unit is capable of treating, the combination of the two technologies can result in a zero waste outcome. So there's an actual, again, when I did this presentation initially, there was no commercial applications that I was aware of globally where people had a zero waste outcome. Now there's a site in Wyoming, Michigan, which the For Never site it's called, which is a heritage crystal clean site working with Alonia, Epic, and Revive Environmental, which is Battelle. So what it is Alonia is an Epic use a foam fractionation units, SAF, S-A-F-F. Revive Environmental is the PFAS annihilator, so they're providing the supercritical water oxidation unit. Heritage Crystal Clean is a waste treatment firm that's accepting leachate that's being trucked in from a landfill, and then they're running it through the foam fractionation unit, concentrating down the PFAS into the super concentrate and then destroying that using the PFAS annihilator. I think the project started early in 2023, supposedly scalable to about 150,000 to 200,000 gallons per day. As far as I know, I have not seen any data or whether the data is publicly available and whether that system's fully online or not, but there is a commercial application that looks at different treatment train options that really does have an on-site destruction technology that can produce zero waste. So I probably covered that way too fast for people. I saw something in the chat. So the slides were available with the exception of that last one in the email from Kelly earlier. I will send the updated version to her and she can just distribute that after today's meeting, but happy to answer any questions from anybody. And the sound of silence means I did a good job.
I got one question, if I may.
Sure.
In one of your slides, incineration, you say 1400 degree Fahrenheit somewhere.
That would be
And,
the yep.
So what compound was it? I couldn't catch it. Yeah,
CF4.
right there. So
yeah. It's the fluorocarbon pouring, and don't ask me the compound because my chems, I'm not going to be able to remember the. It's one of the shorter chains.
I think it's PFBS,
Yes, sorry.
I think.
So the typical incinerators we design is 1600 degrees Fahrenheit, but this is 1400 C. It's close. It's close. It's getting.
But the problem, Joe, is we don't know what we're missing. The air, it's one thing to be able to get to that temperature, but we don't know, we don't have good air methods for testing to understand the mass that we might be not analyzing for. And so versus creating, because there's so many things that can happen in the chemical transformation process while it is being incinerated, we're afraid that there might be other things that are being transformed in that process that might be formed and then being discharged that we don't even know we're missing until later. So there's just a lot of wariness in the regulated community about incineration in general, which is why we like some of these other more complete destruction options, from a environmental standpoint.
The only comment to that is there are a couple of incinerator systems with the activated carbon filter in the exhaust side in the US. But as you say, these guys are wary about doing anything. They don't want to participate in any kind of testing just because they're worried about unknowns.
And I don't want to be cynical, but I mean, the other factor is residence time at those temperatures. Typically, the operators of the incinerators, they get paid by the amount of material they're treating. So the faster they put things through their unit, the more money they make.
Well, but those are the municipal guys don't operate that way. But anyway,
no,
thanks for that.
I'm not aware of any municipal incinerators that are treating PFAS.
Well, they don't want to even test for it.
Yeah, I think
they don't want to know.
Well, exactly. And they don't, and as far as I know, we don't have any incinerators like that in Michigan. So a lot of these are out of state. But yeah, they don't, there's huge liabilities there. If they get something that does partial combustion or what they call products of incomplete combustion, the downwind, soils and groundwater might be impacted, and then they have that liability. So there's a huge amount of unknown, and the science just isn't quite there yet to really help us form a good science-based decision on these things. So that's why I think the rest of the industry, when it comes to PFAS destruction and degradation type PFAS treatment technologies is really just exploding. So what Jason gave you in 30 slides is what I'm currently at a conference for right now for 2 days. Because there's so much science that's being developed around these things. And it's really fascinating and it's really encouraging because I think we're close. We're closer to finding microbes that can actually degrade this stuff. We're closer to having plasma treatment that can do it efficiently without huge costs. Like Jason said, we do have this supercritical water oxidation unit in Wyoming, which we will be splitting samples with them here shortly because we want to make sure that it's working and it's working efficiently. And so that's one of the first full-scale SCWO units in the country for Battelle is here in Michigan. So this is a big deal. I've actually stood in that picture right there and went to that facility to see the foam fractionation unit and saw the SCWO units, the PFAS annihilator, they call it. But we're going to be watching closely to make sure that it's done right and that Heritage Crystal Clean is, is actually able to achieve the water quality standards, because ultimately everything that they treat and then they will be disposing to the city of Wyoming's wastewater treatment plant. So we want to make sure that there's no accidental discharges to the wastewater treatment plant.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. There questions for Jason?
Kelly, did I see Mike Jury had a hand up at one point?
I did, but I had a comment on defluoro, but that's okay.
Yeah, Mike, isn't defluoro what they're using out in Minnesota for the 3M plume? Isn't that defluoro?
Yeah, and then also there's a setup in Australia too. So Minnesota is actually treating groundwater that's gone through the SAF units, and then they're using that unit to destroy the PFAS, quote unquote, destroy the PFAS.
I did a pilot at the Brisbane International Airport in 2018, partnering with AECOM and the defluoro technology back then. And we were able to achieve the outcome we needed. It just took a long residence time in their unit.
How long of a residence time, Jason? Out of curiosity.
Hours.
Oh, okay. So was it more of a batch?
It was a batch process from a destruction technology, and this was early days for defluoro. This is before they commercialized it and improved the process, but it was definitely energy intensive, and so it basically took a long time to achieve the destruction levels they needed to meet. And if you have brackish water, you can create things if you have chloride in the water, you can create things. Bromic acid, for instance, if you're not careful.
Any other questions or comments?
If you guys
So
want, yeah, go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say, whoever just popped in to do homework, I was going to do some homework on the presentation. There's a lot of information on it. If you Google US EPA PIT, PFAS Innovation Team, they have a whole website, where I stole a lot of this information from. There's a lot more in-depth discussions if you want more detail than what I provided. So I encourage you to go there, and ITRC is another place you can go look.
Mhm. Mhm. I think the takeaways for those who this is pretty intensive science. And believe me, I often sit in these presentations, trying to keep up with the science behind it because there's a lot. I mean, this is very specific chemistry, specific biochemistries, just these destruction technologies are not for the faint of heart. These are researchers that are doing hardcore science on this stuff, but it is really fascinating to watch and to see how far it's come. So I just had a presentation today on the plasma technology, which was infinite, looked like, at least from energy perspective, it was going to be infinitely less expensive to run than the supercritical water oxidation, which I found fascinating. And so, we're going to talk about, asked him if he had ever done, destruction of AFFF. So he was thinking about doing that. So it's like, if we can get some of that really nasty stuff and actually get complete destruction with it, that would really revolutionize the way we can clean out fire trucks and clean out some of these fixed systems that have firefighting foam in them, without having to completely replumb a building or replumb a fire truck or all those kinds of things that you don't think about, but there's some significant costs for getting rid of PFAS out of certain systems. So a lot of uses for this stuff, and it is very fascinating.
Hopefully I avoided the being overly technical.
Yeah. I think you did a great overview of the information. Depends on what kinds of other information people want to hear.
Well, I was encouraged when Jason first started talking about it, back when we were talking, Sandy and I were talking with him regarding the leadership team, just on the fact that there is possibilities of something positive coming out of this. So we appreciate all the people who are working on actually trying to break these bonds and that, so we can see about getting rid of some of it. Thank you, Jason. Thanks very much for
No, it's a pleasure, and money is a big motivator. So.
It is, but the good thing is we've got people, researchers in Australia, researchers in Europe, researchers all across the country, really hitting the PFAS problem hard. So unlike some of our other, environmental treatment technologies, I think this one's going to develop very fast because there's a significant problem and it affects everybody. So it's not just a niche market. This is full scale. Everybody needs it. So I'm hearing about, researchers and treatment technologies that are really funding up to meet the challenge. So pretty encouraged by that as well. All right.
Excellent.
All right, thank you. So what we had next was going to be a general discussion by members on open topics. Does anybody have anything that they want to bring up? I guess one of the things that had been brought up and did create kind of a lightning rod was the possibility of having a member-only meeting. Are there people who would like to have a member-only meeting?
I have my hand up, but Mary can't see it, right?
Right.
Okay.
Sorry, yep.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I'm just always amazed when it works. Is there anyone else who would like to say something first?
You're the only one with your hand up.
All right, wow, okay. Now someone else, I've got competition going here. First of all, I was surprised to read some of the negative responses about having some member-only meetings. I think that my sense is that, well, a couple words were used, such as divisive or cowardly or in that regard, and I didn't understand that. Um, I have found it to be very beneficial, especially throughout the whole story of what happened here in Rockford. I think it's great when citizens simply connect with each other. We never see each other. We're on these meetings. And oftentimes, one comment here or there, but we don't really understand how each other works. And all of us are wired differently. So I would think a member only meeting is there to get to know each other, to understand each other's perspectives better, for it to be a respectful thing, and to pick different topics. It's nothing that anybody would have to do. You just be invited to participate, and if you didn't want to participate, then that's fine too. But I don't think there's anything, there's any ulterior or negative motives behind doing that. I think people connecting with each other is great. I'd prefer that we could all meet together face to face. So I was surprised about that. I often think it's a good thing, and I like the idea of a group giving each other the benefit of the doubt. That we all are, including MPART and Abby and Kelly, and we're all trying to get to work together and find ways to create connections to work together better. That's my perspective. After this is discussed, I had something else I wanted to bring up, but I would like to let other people speak first on this. Is there anyone else who had their hand up?
I did, but I'm on the phone, so I don't think you can see a hand. It's
Okay.
Samara Lookman. Just commenting about it. I don't necessarily oppose that sort of a meeting. And I think it's great sometimes to be able to have people speak more freely if they feel like they would be able to speak more freely. My only concern is in the interest of like time and people's schedules, that we do have an agenda for such a meeting if one were to be done, to ensure that we're not just meeting without purpose, and that we are doing it for some particular reason or for some particular agenda item, discussion, what have you. So that's all I would say about that.
So this is Dan. We had a conversation about the meeting outside of the normally scheduled COG meetings, member only meeting. I think a couple months ago, had been talking about it a few times. I still support the idea for a couple of reasons. One is I think there are a number of things that are worth talking through amongst ourselves and aren't worth spending state officials' time. Something else that just kind of occurred to me is, there are some of those points where I think I don't want to put the state officials in a tough spot. If there are issues that have a political tinge or something else that comes up, I don't want government employed folks to feel uncomfortable or in any way like they're part of something that they shouldn't be. So I think it's a good idea. I think there are a number of things that we need to work through. So I still support the idea.
Any other comments before we go back to Lynn? Mary Lynn, I don't
Okay.
see any hands raised.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
I'm gonna put mine back up then. Here we go. Let's see if it worked again. It did. Okay, anybody else want to say anything?
go ahead, Lynn.
Okay, all right. I'm trying to be more aware of letting other people speak. Because I could go on, I know that. There were two things I wanted to bring up about future agenda items. And one of them is something I didn't want to lose track of because I brought it up once at the end of a meeting, and I believe Dan brought it up another time. But I had heard something on NPR about how Michigan still allows fertilizer that in our state that's that has PFAS chemicals in it. And I don't have all the details in front of me right now, but boy, I sure would like as a group for us to think about. I mean, Maine has banned it. Maybe I don't know if that's the only state. There's 48. Well, I don't even have the details except that I know that Michigan was listed in this article as one of the states. And I think I sent that information to you, Abby, on a link maybe 2 or 3 months ago, but I didn't want that to get dropped because it is something I think that's worth discussing and trying to be a state that doesn't participate in using things on our farms that can just encourage the ongoing PFAS cycle. That's one that I need to do more research on. Don't have a great technical understanding, but would love to see it on the agenda. The one though that is so exciting to me in a certain sense that it's starting to be studied more, especially with our scholarship recipients, just studying foam and understanding foam. I would really love to talk at the next meeting about creating and helping to train some of us to be citizen scientists out in the field. I know that Rick had sent me an email and connected me perhaps with a couple of people right there at MPART, maybe you, Mark Juries, and Amy Peterson. I know that Lynn Kay, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but maybe, but we've already chatted. There are many situations that you see when you're out and about as a citizen, and after a while, I've seen enough of that film and taken enough photos. I could almost win an Oscar, I think. But there's ways if we were trained, not that we couldn't come about it in the same way. We could do screening too and say, hey, we tested this foam, we tested this surface, or we followed your technique, and this is what we found. And if it's concerning, then it gives you something to start with. And I would love to see practical ways where some of us could do some of it. That's an agenda item I would look forward to seeing put on next month's meeting.
Thanks, Lynn.
Yeah.
Abby, did you have your hand up?
Yeah. I don't have a response for Lynn's second suggestion yet. I'd have to ponder that carefully because I'm not sure what that would entail or how that would work. But for your first question, Lynn, on the fertilizers for farmland, there's a couple of things, and I agree, we should put it on an agenda item so that we can dive into it because there's a couple of different terminology differences that we need to make sure we're all using. Fertilizers are not the same as biosolids. So biosolids are those materials that come from wastewater treatment plants that are treated to make sure they don't have pathogens in them when they're actually applied to farm fields. And biosolids in the state of Michigan are tested for PFAS and before they can be land applied. So we're handling that part of it. But I think I'm gonna have to go back and dig and find the article that you sent me, Lynn, because I thought it was talking about bagged fertilizers. not biosolids. And there's
It
a
was talking about,
difference.
yeah, it was talking about fertilizers that are, that we'll, yeah, we need to, probably shouldn't take the time right now. I just didn't want it to get dropped. And
Okay.
I know Dan had brought it up too, so I'm just like, hey, let's not drop this. I'm not technically, what should I say, fluent in what that was all about. But I did read the article. I did hear it being talked about. And I think it is fertilizers.
Yeah. And so, articles are not necessarily great with the differentiation between the different sources of fertilizers or what they're actually talking about. So, if we want to have a conversation about it, let me bring in the right people to actually to break it down into the different categories, because this is a lot more complex conversation than you would realize. And it's not only regulated by Eagle, but it's also regulated by MDARD with Department of Ag. And so I need to bring in a couple of extra people to help navigate the conversation, but it's certainly something we can do. And it's like you said, it's a worthwhile conversation to make sure that as you guys, as the Citizens Advisory Group, can look at a newspaper article and say, okay, I think they've got 99% of it right, but maybe there's this one detail that they're using the terminology wrong, and it's kind of misleading. Because I don't think Michigan's in the same situation as some of the other states in the country when it comes to this topic.
Okay, it was Nashville Public Radio, so it
Okay.
seemed to be a well-researched presentation. That's all. So I would just like to follow up with it. That's all. Tonight's
Okay.
not the night, because I think we all need to define it more.
Yep, sounds good.
Yeah, just to jump in here real quick. So I think there are sort of several different dimensions to the question of how. I think the fundamental question is, how are PFAS being used, or what does the guidance say about land application of PFAS in fertilizer, pesticides, herbicides, both in a systemic way, through, repurposed wastewater treatment sludge, or through consumer, bags of fertilizer, for home lawn application, or agricultural application. So, all the different ways that could potentially get applied to the land, either in an agricultural setting or residential setting, I think would be worth trying to understand that. I think generally what would be helpful to me, and others in my orbit, is just an understanding of what MDARD is doing at this point to tackle the problem of PFAS land application generally.
Yep. And it's kind of a nuanced answer. So, and we don't have answers for all of it, Dan. So, but yeah, if you guys can do me a favor though, and get me your questions, as many as you have on that particular topic, that'll help us to make sure our presentation, and we've got the right people in the room, can be, really helpful for next month's meeting.
Sounds good.
Does anybody else have any topics or future agenda items they would like to discuss tonight?
Well, there's another Lynn, the other Lynn.
Yeah, that's me.
Up.
I'll get my questions too. I think you kind of answered it about the sludge testing and that in Michigan. I had read the same article either in the New York Times or the Atlantic about a Maine farmer who on his land decades and decades earlier, they had applied PFAS tainted sludge and he had to give up his farm. The entire thing was contaminated, all of his cows, his family. So I'll get my questions to you on that. And I guess my question was, I have a Facebook site in our areas that I was going to post about not touching or letting your pets or don't come in contact with the PFAS foam. But I'm interested in seeing if that testing is going to be initiated again at any point, or are we just, should our warning just be don't touch it, don't let your pets touch it? Our lake
Yeah.
association, the president has offered to test some of the foam that we're seeing on Duck Lake with a private lab, but he asked, well, what do we do? How do we fix it? I don't want to tell people if it turns out it's high in PFAS if there's no fix. And the only suggestion I had from Trace Analytical is that you just have to go back and look and see if, see where the source could possibly be coming from, septics or an old industry and that. But I guess I just don't want to be accused of, fear mongering. But on the other hand, I think I feel obligated to let people know, don't touch it. Our lake is pretty small. Duck Lake is only 300 acres. So I think it's gotten overlooked in some of the, some testing issues and that, but yeah, I was just wondering if anybody had any suggestions for the messaging on this, other than if you see foam and, the difference between the bacterial foam and PFAS foam, saying don't touch it, and maybe having the reporting. I think there's a link on the Eagle website on how you can report seeing it. So
You're doing good, Lynn. Keep going. You've got the whole message right there. Exactly. Our main message is going to be, if you see foam, don't touch it, stay out of contact with it. We know that it's going to, especially if it looks like bright white like this, it's going to be PFAS foam. The Van Etten Lake samples that Kelly is showing right now is foam sampling. And you will notice that we know that PFOS especially is hyper concentrated in foam when surface water concentrations at the same location are much, much lower. So it's because of the basic chemical properties of the PFOS molecule that the head is hydrophilic, the tail is hydrophobic. So the head's going to stick in the water, the tail's going to stick out, and when the wind catches it, it's going to foam up. That's the basic property of PFOS that is used for firefighting foam.
Okay.
Which is what it was from here. So it's going to be a very thin layer, micro layer on the very top of the water column. So the question, you had of what would you do about it? Well, at this point, what we're doing is we're having people go to the foam sampling page, or the foam page on MPART's website, fill out this app, go to my Enviro, thank you, Kelly, and fill out that reporting of foam things so that we can track them. Because if we're getting a whole bunch of foam reports in one area, then it makes us aware of the fact there could be a PFAS source there. And we want to add that to our PFAS or our lakes and streams monitoring that is done on a regular basis across the state. And so the reporting is important. And as I understand it, our WRD staff will look at those reports. They often call the person who reported it, talk to them, about some of the basic information, but we aren't sampling it because it really doesn't do anything for us at this point. We know that the foam is there, and it's the foam report that means more to us at this point, because it means we might have a PFAS source that we need to take a closer look at.
Okay.
So those are the things that we've been doing. But yeah, on the MPART website, there is a number of foam Q&As, and then that actual location, the link for reporting a foam sighting.
Okay. Now I did have someone call me back. I discussed the pictures of foam with, I don't remember who it was, but somebody very knowledgeable in PFAS, and they said it was concerning because of the color, in over 55 years, I've never seen anything quite like this. But the person who called me back from the state, I didn't have a lot of confidence in her knowledge of PFAS foam. Okay. She was like, it's probably bacterial, but kind of ignoring the pictures and my experience with seeing other foam on the lake and that. So I
Okay.
just wanted to communicate that.
All right, good to know on our part. We'll have to make sure that they have better answers on that.
Lynn, where
right.
is Duck Lake?
Duck Lake is just south of White Lake and north of Muskegon Lake. It's another drowned river mouth. We have a state park that comprises over half the area of the lake, and then 2 nice township parks. So it's over 50% public access, which is really nice. And it has a boat landing and everything on it. So it's a nice little lake. Tinier than I think a lot of people would like for water skiing and that, but good fishing. I think it's a nice little lake.
Excellent.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
I see Daniel and Lynn have their hands up, and I think it looks like Lynn was first.
Okay, yeah, Lynn, I would like to talk to you and to the rest of the group that I think it's absolutely important to get the sampling done for the PFAS. Get your township to do it, get people to put up the money to do it. I appreciate the fact that the state is taking samples and noting it, but that's just by the way things work, no criticisms, it's not fast enough. And you have to wait till there's enough lights for it to be bright enough to get the attention. That's not how we got attention. I was concerned about the foam on the Rogue River a long time before others caught up with that. And it's just, you don't want kids playing with it. I've heard of kids using it on their face like shaving cream. You don't want. It took, just so you know, Lynn and other citizens here, it took 10 years to get signs up on the Rogue River and warning people about the sediment and then don't touch the foam. It's like, that's not fast enough. I was always going up to people quietly and saying, hey, I don't want to raise your alarms and fears, but I know a lot about this river that's not really much public knowledge. And I would make sure you watch your children's hands, or that have been in this water. But it took photos and photos and photos, and it took so long. So that's where I feel like we need to get citizens who have knowledge. I know that foam backwards and forwards. I really was, when I was talking about some of my photos could win the Oscars. I mean, I have it in many forms and in many contexts, and it's nothing to wait on. It needs to be tested, and it's not anyone's fault, but how do we bridge this when we don't have enough capacity on an agency's end to address things that really could be concerned? I always would rather draw the line on knowing more as soon as possible, which in our case, we put our money on the table. So I didn't mean to burst out like that, but we can't just go to websites and make phone calls. It's something that's really important, and that's where I feel like I'm gonna stop.
Well, I think you've given me kind of the idea of reaching out to the state park and the township. I'm on the
Absolutely.
Parks and Recreation, and maybe putting a sign up and just getting the information and get the reporting going, because they're probably asked quite a bit about, the people who work there. It's not staffed very intensively at all, except maybe on weekends. So I think I gotta start where I can and kind of think of where I can get some inexpensive signs and whatnot made to help along with that, just to get this going, information out there.
The first thing to do is get a sample of that foam tested.
Yeah, yep. And I've got someone who's often, because I've called around, one of the recommended labs is overwhelmed with testing samples. And one of them, I know Trace offered to do it. They're not approved, but he just wanted me to gather a little sample in a plastic cup that I could go by there and get. The price was right, but I'd rather not do it. I'd rather do it according to the approved way, gathering a large bag of foam. But having to rely on private donations and that is, I just wish it was more economically available to people to get that tested to verify what it is and then
It
move
needs
forward.
to be. It needs to be. And Abigail, this is one of those things where I know how much everybody at MPART is trying to do. But really, I know that the sites, it's triage all the time. I get it. I understand how things work, but a lake should be tested. If there's foam and there's how do we address this as a group? It should be tested. We shouldn't have to wait for something bigger or worse to happen. There's got to be a way to address these situations as they come up.
Okay.
Lynn,
Well,
you don't
it's
want to put, I'm almost done. I know I have to back off. I get it. But Lynn, you don't want to put up any signs unless you've tested it. You have to test it. You have to have the facts. That's the only way we move forward. And so there's got to be a ways to get those facts. That's all. I'm done. I'm sorry.
Dan's got his hand up too.
Yeah, I was just going to say the Ecology Center tested foam on our river in 2019 and this was around the same time that we were seeing the shaving cream sort of classic PFAS foam up in a different part of the river. They tested what I would consider to be sort of natural river foam at the same time. It looks chunky, kind of rectangular, brownish on top, etc. And even in that foam, they found sort of the classic signature where it's 1,000, 10,000 times higher than the surface water that was sampled right nearby at the same time. The non-foamy water was 1,000, 10,000 times lower than what was in the foam. So the messaging that we have basically been telling people on the river as it relates to recreation is just treat every gun like it's loaded, treat all foam like it has PFAS in it. Even if it doesn't fit the classic description, it's likely gonna have elevated levels. And everything kind of falls from within that. So if you make contact with foam, rinse off with non-foamy river water, and then wash it up when you go home. But it's basically just building awareness that don't try to make the judgment call about the nature of the foam. Just avoid all foam as a precaution.
Let's see, Amy's got her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo, some of what Dan just said, because, one of the reasons that we're not able to test the foam everywhere and aren't doing that right now is, a couple reasons. One is if you look at the data that's here in front of you, at the same location on different dates, even within the same month, you have greatly differing concentrations of foam, right? And there's also other stuff in the foam that, regardless of concentration, there's other things that would, make it so you wouldn't want to have your kids playing in the foam anyway. So, as Dan was saying, the overall message is regardless of concentration, it's just best to avoid the foam. And that is really the overall message that DHHS is going to be rolling out again. They have an annual foam press release that they're going to be issuing. And at the top of that PFAS foam in lakes and streams page, that's pretty much what it says right now. So it's the same regardless of whether you're going to be sampling or not. The other reason that we're not doing sampling is not only because the variability in the foam comes and goes, it's unpredictable, right? So I know early on when Mike Jury was asked by the previous administration to get some sampling done at certain locations around the state, including Van Etten, it was doggone tricky to try to, come from a certain part of the state to get up there in time to actually, grab a sample before, some of it disappears. So it was very hit or miss to get some of the samples you see in front of you. And as you can see, the concentrations are all over the place. And again, in the end, the message is the same: to stay out of the foam. And then the last thing I'll mention is that by reporting foam sightings to that page that is there, it goes into the program, the My Waters or My Environment program. Our Water Sources Division staff are reviewing those reportings on a regular basis. And then they're using that not just for statewide, sampling, they're using it also to help narrow down the sources of PFAS. So they're doing actual investigations based on those foam reports. So I just kind of want to tie all that stuff together. I know there's a lot of interest in this. Yeah, there you go. All right, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I wonder though, based on what Amy just said, and the fact that state staff may not be able to get to a location at the same time that the foam is there, that kind of speaks to what Lynn was talking about, that if you had COG members or other people in the community that would be trained in being able to get a foam sample, that might be beneficial.
Well, but I think the like Dan said, there's really no level that we're going to say is acceptable or not acceptable. So no matter the concentration, we want you to stay out of the foam. So, obviously Van Etten Lake is some of the highest we have for foam concentrations. We did take foam concentrations from the Rogue River too. We have high levels there as well, but the ultimate message is the same. We don't have a technique to remove PFAS foam from lakes yet. That's one treatment technology I have not seen anyone tackling. So until that happens, until we get, because ultimately, unfortunately, what I think we're seeing around some of these smaller lakes that don't have any industry on them, they don't have any groundwater plumes. What I think we're seeing on the lakes from the foam is our septic tanks. And so until we can get this stuff out of our consumer products and out of our residential homes, we're going to continue to find foam on lakes. And so we can take samples, but it's purely a scientific endeavor, and it's not going to change the ultimate message or inform any kind of cleanup treatment design or anything like that yet, because we're just not there yet. So, Daniel, I think your hand went back up.
Yeah, that was, you said what I was just going to say, which is we're starting to suspect septic tanks. That's one of the growing list of reasons why HRWC wants, reform to the state septics code, or we want a state septics code, I should say. And there's a lot of discussion happening around that in the legislature right now about how best to do that. What Amy said is encouraging around using those kind of foam outbreaks as indicators for where there might be a problem. That's interesting, and it's kind of what I hope would happen. Because when we saw a bunch on Portage Lake, it looked particularly odd. We saw basically these slicks of foam that were staying in place. It was doing all the things that you are told PFAS does. It kind of rolls up on shore, it looks sticky, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that could be a really useful indicator for trying to track down other problems. One question I have just generally, because even as we're looking at lakes that are, as you said, Abby, sort of isolated, kind of protected, a lot of them are in natural areas, state parks, et cetera. No industry or really any recent history of commercial or anything like that. And yet they still have these lower levels of PFAS in them. what I'm starting to suspect is could it be coming from, you know, recreational use or boat traffic? And I wonder if what information is available about PFAS in, you know, basically marine motor use. You know, is it in marine grease? You know,
or
could it be
boat
coming from
wax.
marinas or boat wax or?
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sure it is because it's in, you know, bike lubricant and all that kind of stuff too. So, I wonder if sort of this sort of low grade contribution that we kind of see everywhere on these recreation lakes, you know, is there any way we could like try to correlate PFAS level to recreational use? I don't know. It's something I'm always idly curious about because it seems like that could be one of the only ways that in some of these places it's being brought in. Anyway, stop there.
No, it's definitely one of those good things. I haven't seen any research on it. And I'm sure Mike Jury can take a look at his references, but I have not seen any kind of, there's a lot of testing going on, so maybe somebody's out there looking at that piece, but not that I've seen. So Lynn Knopf, did you raise your hand again?
Yeah, I sure did. I was just thinking, it's possible Duck Lake is one of those kind of small protected lakes you were talking about, and I've received just a couple complaints from residents with the increase in the water level. It's gone higher than even my, 88-year-old father had seen in his life. So I'm quite suspicious of the septic tanks because there are a few very, very old septics. They're right on the lake. There's not a lot of turnover of property, so that's been my suspicion too. But I also, every year at the Lake Association meeting, I have the chemicals, the dye that we can test people's septics on, and there's not a lot of interest in it. But this would be great if we could segue, some foam testing and trace it back. It's going to be like pulling teeth, but to link it back to leaking septics to try and get the buy-in on the lake. It's definitely not going to help my popularity whatsoever, but I'm doing this for the greater good, not for that. But it would be a great test case, and maybe the state could use it as an example of why we need to look into septics much more aggressively.
Well, and as Dan was just mentioning, we're, the state is proposing a statewide septic code, which is, Michigan is one of the few states in the country that does not have a statewide unified septic code.
Yeah.
But you also think about these lakes. We've got so many lakes that used to be just cabins on the lake, and they were summer use only. They didn't get a lot of, year-round use. Now you've got the same lot size, building mega mansions on these properties, and they're still on septics. And sometimes the septic hasn't even been upgraded to accommodate these new houses, and you've got people living there year round.
Right.
Using all kinds of stuff. So I think it's a matter of a whole bunch of different, lifestyle choices and just changes in the way we use these lakes. That's my guess is that it's probably a multitude of factors, but we are, we're used to just dumping stuff down our septics and not thinking a thing about what it might be doing on the backside, because one of the things, and the lake levels totally have a lot to do with it, because just listening to a presentation today, they were talking about water levels and that ability to flush, the short chain compounds out of the soils much easier than the long chain compounds. And so as the water goes up and goes down, you're going to have like a surging effect in that water, in that soil column, and you're actually going to be kind of scrubbing it a little bit. So you're going to get more foam, you're going to get more PFAS release. So if you've got high water right now, that could be totally one of the reasons you're seeing some of the stuff in the lake.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Okay.
So, all right. And I see Lynn. has still got her hand up. I'm
Yeah,
assuming that's not a leftover, right, Lynn?
no. You know, the reason that I probably spoke with more emotion than most people do is because I lived in a situation where it took a long time for help to come. So, and I know things are different now, but I still remember that. And so therefore, when I hear about Lynn and I hear these meetings, I'm listening in as someone who, where I was 10 years ago, going, we know this stuff, but the people don't know that. Like, we understand, as Dan said, don't come near other phone, but the everyday person doesn't understand that. That message is not out there. It simply isn't. And my most recent example was when I called just even this week. I talked to the the guy in charge at Cortland Township who had never heard of the MPART site. Now they have an MPART site now. It's listed right there on 11 Mile Road. And I called to ask a few questions, and I'm the one who showed him the MPART site. If the municipalities and the park systems and all these places aren't educated, and they're not concerned, the few of us who get on these meetings and understand it scientifically, that's one thing. It's another thing for the people who actually live there. And that's what's hard for me, is that I don't see where we're getting this message out so that the everyday average person understands. Don't touch the phone. Just don't touch it. So that's where I get upset, because yes, I understand from an agency viewpoint that what's the purpose of testing the phone? By the time we get there, it's gone. But that's where I said right at the beginning. But yes, I was trained by Rick Radisky to take samples of things. It wasn't that hard. And I took them to a lab that was reputable. I got chain of custody. I was able to come up with factual information using the right techniques. So I still think it'd be a very beneficial thing to have people out there and to get municipalities and people aware, because they want facts too. And so I say this, trying to say it more calmly. My boots on the ground is an important part of being a citizen. That's it. And I don't go to websites typically. And there's a lot of people who don't. That's it.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yep.
So it looks like it's 8:05. Abby, did you want to report any more on MPART updates or?
Just like I think the stuff that you guys talked about, we do have a new site in Rockford, which is the district knows about and is working on. Another one, the Superfund site, Beaufort Noble, is in Muskegon County. So that one does not have any immediate drinking water receptors. And then North Houghton County Wastewater and Sewer Authority in Calumet, that one also is got like a handful of houses, I think 3 or 4 houses that we're going to be doing some reach out. They look like they're side gradient, but we're going to double check them just in case. And then going live tomorrow will be the Roscommon Area Public Schools wastewater treatment plant and Kalkaska wastewater treatment plant. So those are ones that are working through the Water Resources Division. Do we have more slides than that, Kelly? And then we did post the comments that Eagle and MPART sent over to EPA on the proposed National Primary Drinking Water Regulation. That's the MCLs. So those proposed rules are out there and we're out for public comment end of May. So we did have comments there, and then also met with the state of Colorado just last week to give them our perspective on the benefits of setting up a coordinated MPART-like structure to coordinate actions for PFAS across their state. And so they're looking to do a very similar thing, and we're thrilled to have Michigan's perspective on how to handle that, how to get the legislative buy-in, the governor's buy-in and stuff for the state of Colorado. And I think those are it. So I see Lynn's got her hand up.
Nope, she
Is that
doesn't.
it?
Nope, she's taking it
Okay,
down. I'm
she's taking
sorry.
it down. Patty's got her hand up though.
Yes, hi. Maybe this was talked about earlier. I had to step away. Is there an update on the Hillsborough area of contamination in Cascade Township?
I don't have a update for you tonight, Patty. I can get you one though. I know there was additional reservoir sampling, but I don't know if unless Amy's got something off the top of her head, I don't know that I've got an update as far as if we've gotten those samples back yet.
Yeah, I'm not
Okay,
aware. I'm not aware that the last batch of samples have come back. I've not been informed of that, if they have.
Okay, and no source identified, correct? No.
That one is very tough. So far,
Okay.
that's probably one of our tougher sources to try to identify. So nothing obvious. We're gonna continue to follow the breadcrumbs and see where it leads us.
What about a town hall? Has that been scheduled yet?
I will check with the district to see what they were thinking on that. I think they were waiting to see, because they were gonna sample one more round of homes and talk with the homeowners association as well as the township about setting something up. So I know that was the last conversation we had. So I would expect something yet this summer.
Okay, what type of homeowners association is it? Is it a formal one, or is it mainly just like a Facebook or a Google group like mine?
I don't know. I know there was one section of it that had some sort of a homeowners association, but then there was like another 100 homes that had nothing. So I think they were going to work through the township for a good chunk of it because it expanded beyond that initial area. They were going to be looking at obviously including the homeowners association, but then trying to include everyone else as well.
Gotcha. Thank you.
But I'll check on that, Patty. I got Karen Vorse here at the conference with me tonight, so I'll ask her. All right, Mary, back to you then.
Was there anybody else who had any future topics that they would like to bring up at a future meeting? No? Okay. Well, thank you for attending. If anybody has any comments or questions or concerns regarding this meeting, feel free to reach out to leadership, myself, Sandy Wynn Stelt, or Jason. And thank you, Jason, for presenting tonight. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Other than that, I think this would be a good time to sign off. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Thanks, bye.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.